We're here this evening to commemorate the 3-year, 8-month anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire. My name's Edward Daffarn. I'm a committee member of Grenfell United, and I'm going to say a few words about the impact that virtual hearings are having on the bereaved, the survivors, and the wider community in general. I think it's really important that we remember that however upset, however disappointed we are with virtual hearings, we must not let the inquiry process become the main focus of our discontent. Our discontent, our anger, and our demand for justice must always focus on those perpetrators, the companies and the individuals that were responsible for what happened at Grenfell Tower. One of our QCs in his opening statement to Module 2 described Arconic, Celotex, Kingspan as little better than crooks and killers. But I think we've seen that they're far worse than that. I think we've seen that the Arconic witnesses that have chosen not to appear at the public inquiry are, in my opinion, nothing better than gutless cowards. And I think that the witnesses that are appearing under virtual hearings are treating us with disdain and contempt, with no compassion and no empathy. What we had to suffer last week, watching Deborah French giving her evidence, almost like a no-comment interview, full of "I can't recall" and "I can't remember," was a great insult to our community. Over the last couple of days, it's become very obvious that the virtual hearings are exacerbating the inability of the QCs to hold those witnesses to account. What's equally galling for the bereaved and survivors is that at no part in this latest decision to hold virtual hearings were we consulted with. And it is beginning to feel that the inquiry executive is beginning to treat us something similar to how we were treated by RBKC and the KCTMO. No one understands the need for health and safety like the Grenfell community. And we all understand that COVID is an extraordinary occurrence and we are living in extraordinary times. But justice is really important as well. It's really important that we get to see the witnesses, give their evidence in person. And if we can't be in the room to look them in the eye, we need to know that they're in a room giving evidence in front of a judge and in front of a QC, and there is no way that they can be being briefed by lawyers or getting information through mobile phones or alternative computers. For many of us, it is absolutely imperative that the KCTMO and the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea give their evidence in person. They are the perpetrators that come from inside our community. We had no direct contact with the manufacturers, with the construction company or the architects, but RBKC were our local authority. The KCTMO were our landlord. For many of us, we do not feel justice will be done unless we are able to be in the inquiry room and look the perpetrators in the eye, and at worst know that the perpetrators are being made to attend the inquiry premises in person and face Sir Martin Moore-Bick and the questions directly, and not be able to hide on their sofas in their slippers talking into a computer screen. What we're looking for now is when the Prime Minister announces the way forward with the lifting of COVID restrictions, which is due to take place week beginning February the 22nd, that the inquiry executive outline and create a roadmap that tells us quite explicitly when we can expect to see witnesses back into the inquiry space. I'd like to hand over now to Karim, who's going to talk a little bit about Arconic and some of the other manufacturers.
So after a long delay, the inquiry has started up again. We've heard from Kingspan and Celotex, and now it's time for Arconic. And we know all of the drama and complications we've had just to get members of Arconic to come to the public inquiry. And we now know that Claude Schmidt will attend the inquiry next week. But there's still 3 others that we want to come that are not going to come. But Deborah French, the UK sales manager, just before Vince Meakin has taken to the stand. She was being advised by her seniors in terms of what products were best to push onto her customers. She never thought to question any of the marketing materials that Arconic were pushing out to their customers in terms of their certification and testing. Their product wasn't doing well in Europe. They couldn't sell it in Europe. The UK market was a lot more sort of blasé, and they targeted it. Grenfell was targeted as a refurbishment project for these materials. We now know that companies like Celotex, Kingspan and Arconic knew what they were doing, knew what they were selling, knew that their products were dangerous. But also, what's allowed them to behave in the way that they did is through deregulation. This government has allowed these companies to come in through their PR campaigns, through their massive donations and investments. They've been able to sit at the table with the government, shape the regulations and pump their dangerous materials in this country. And this is also another issue that I think that needs to be addressed and talked about a little bit more, is the lobbying that's happened between these organisations and government, whether it was sit at tables at fundraising events or just be part of like an advisory board to ministers to try to shape the regulation for the building sector, because it's the reason why we've gotten into the place that we are. But with Arconic, I mean, from the first day of the fire, we were talking about cladding, and a lot of us didn't even know what cladding was. And after the phase 1 report, Sir Martin Morbick deemed that the cladding was the reason the fire spread. So it's important that we have these people from Arconic coming to the inquiry, especially with the scandal that we have in this country at the moment, with the issue with cladding and dangerous flammable materials on high-rise buildings and buildings in general in this country, but need to remain united and strong more than ever right now. Because these dirty corporations will use every trick in the book to try to divide us, throw us off track, and limit the damage it has on them. Because we all know it's always been about profit for them. And the less damage, the less money they pay out or lose when it comes to their shareholders or their directors or their stakeholders or whatever. These guys, the more we uncover, the more we bring to light how criminal, fraudulent, corrupt and disgusting these scumbags were and are, they're not going to take that quietly. So we just need to be careful.